What's going on, people? Hope you're doing well. Welcome to Food Chest. It's your man, Prince. You know what? I really appreciate my subscribers. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't done so already, kindly do so, man. I appreciate your comments, your likes, your engagement, you taking the time out to watch my videos. I appreciate this, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So curiosity made me kind of make this post. You know, one thing I fail to understand sometimes is why a country would want other countries to use a currency that is pegged to its name and its economy when the country itself is not even using that country. I mean, it's not using that currency. I'm sorry. It's weird. It's mind-boggling to me. And this is the case of the CFA Franc. So we're going to discuss why this is and what is the presumed advantages and disadvantages of having 14 countries in Africa peg its currency to the French currency, the CFA Franc. Stay tuned. We'll dive into it.
God damn. Let's go. Ha. Food chest. Food chest.
All right, guys. So back to the topic at hand, which is the CFA Franc. So for those who don't know, the CFA Franc, like I mentioned before, is the currency that was used by African French colonies. So it was called Franc of the French colonies of Africa. So the French had a lot of colonies in Africa. You have West African French colonies, you have the Central African French colonies, and they both use the franc as their currency. Even post-independence, now, within this time, they still use it, which is like, why? Why are you guys still doing this? Well, let's explore the reason for the madness. So, in recent years, of course, there has been push to change it and to other names. So instead of the franc, it's so for the West African countries, it's called the Franc of the African Financial Community to the member states of the West African Monetary Union. The abbreviation is WAMU, W-A-M-U. And as the Franc of the Financial Corporation in the Central Africa to the member countries of the Central African Monetary Union, CAMU, C-A-M-U. Nonsense. This is nonsense. Like this is just a way for the French to have a proxy control. And it's like a pseudo, you're independent, we make you think you're independent, but we still control everything. My question has been, since 1960-70, since this country's got their independence from the French, why hasn't any president kind of pushed to liberate themselves of French rule of their economy? I mean, doesn't symbolism mean anything to these past presidents? Well, like I mentioned, there's always a reason for the madness, and it's always good to kind of research and know why. So, on doing some of my research, I looked at, so what is the advantage to these countries of having the franc as their currency instead of having their own independent currency? And here are some of the advantages that are listed as to why. One of them, of course, is the stability of the currency to control inflation. So basically, having the franc maintains price stability and control of inflation in the member countries, making it easier for businesses to plan and invest. It facilitates trade and investment within these countries, lowers interest rates, reduces risk of foreign investors, monetary cooperation and dialogue, resilience to macroeconomic shocks, and it reduces the friction of cost. De jure, all these things sounds good, but de facto, is this really the case? Now, it is good to know that the countries who use the franc are some of the poorest countries in the world. So, does this advantages really come into play? Or are they just things that the French are using to blind these countries? Now, of course, I would believe that in some way, some of these advantages are true because these countries are very volatile countries. So for investors, they want to make sure that their currency is strong enough. So since it's attached to the euro vis-a-vis the French, because the French do not even use the franc, they use the euro. So that makes the franc that these countries use stable somehow because it's attached to the euro vis-a-vis the French. I hear it, but I don't believe it. Now, it's important to know that there are 14 African countries who use this currency. 12 of them are French colonies. 2 of them, the Guineas, Guinea-Bissau and Equatorial Guinea, are Portuguese and Spanish colonies. So it is a huge population within the African continent that are still using this colonial currency. So why is this important, and why is this like something that we are talking about? So it's important because in recent years, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and Senegal recently is contemplating or is making tremendous amount of push to exit the franc zone of currency. So basically, despite the challenges which are involved, because, the French, they know what they're doing. They know that they want to hold on the economies of these countries, which is why they are so, what is it to them? They are so pressuring these countries to stay within this zone when they don't even use this currency. So they want to have control. Even though these countries are independent, they still want to have control over the economies, which is why they're doing this. There's no other reason why. But these countries are making the move to exit. And of course, there are going to be challenges. But I think that the fact that they're doing it together is going to be a cushion for them. And I think it's the right move, regardless of the fact that there might be challenges in it. Because I think that these countries can really work something out that really works for them and to give them independence of their colonial masters. So I think it's a great move, regardless of what people might say, regardless of the rigorous road ahead for them. I think it's important that they make this move. So moving forward, right? So as we know, we looked at the advantages of it, which to me, again, de facto, I don't think they're real advantages. But we have to understand that the franc zone countries are some of the poorest countries in the world. So if there's really an advantage, why are they so poor? You find out that some of the advantages indicate that they want to bring about intra-regional, investment, imports, and whatsoever. But in reality, the only 2 countries who are in any kind of intra-African export, collaboration is only Togo and Senegal. The rest of them are not. Second of all, we see that there is, interest rates when it comes to credit in these countries are high. The CFA Franc zone, the real interest rates incurred by loans remains very high. In some cases, it reaches about 15%, which closes access to loans for many agents, whether companies or households. So when we talk about even the ability to invest, the ability to do business in these countries by local companies or even outsiders, it's still hard. It's not easy. It's difficult. And I believe infrastructures in these countries are terrible. So what advantage really are they gaining from being in the French currency zone? I think this is like a parasitic relationship where France gains all the everything and these countries are left mumbling and still under colonialism, so to speak. So again, what I mentioned, what is it to the French? Researchers have indicated that despite major development, French leaders who have given up their own currency to adopt a European currency, which is controlled by or managed by Germany, would like to have Africa to be the last of anything to have any kind of independence. They want to redesign the franc in any way, shape, or form, which is what they're doing by having all these zones, WAMU, KAMU. They are trying their best to still have a hold, but make the countries have the perception that France does not have a hold on them, which is like a proxy colonial kind of thing. And I don't understand why these presidents or these countries don't understand this. It's very, and that's why I thank God for like countries like Burkina Faso and Senegal with their young presidents and what they're doing. Because you can see this. It's exploitation in every way, shape, or form. So what is it to France? Control. They want to still have control. So for there to be actual economic liberation in any shape or form, these countries who are still operating under the franc, they need to liberate themselves out of the franc. And all these different mechanisms that they have, WAMU, CAMU, and all these regional franc blocks needs to just stop. All these countries need to get their own currencies any way they can do it, or they can have an alliance with other African countries in order. That is the only way these economies are going to grow. Forget about all this thing they list as the way to stabilize the economy. It's all a lie. For there to be real freedom, you have to have control. And for you to have control, you have to move and have demand control by releasing yourself off of French control. And I think these countries can do it. I don't know what you guys think. For those who do business or those who are living within these franc zones, is there really an advantage? Or do you see that it will be detrimental for your country to have its own currency? And if you think so, you are advocating for them to remain in the franc zone. Why is that? Let me know through the comments. And as always, this is Full Chest, bringing you informative, educative content from around the continent. Till next time, this is Full Chest. Peace. Subscribe to the channel, y'all.